What's coming up on today's show? Dennis Thiessen, a Paralympic gold medalist and Canadian wheelchair curling icon, capped off a storied career late last month. He joins the program to chat more about his time with the national team and shares a few of his favorite memories. You won't want to miss this. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Hello everyone, it's Nathan Clement leading the program as Alex Smyth is away helping remake MXC at this current moment, but joining me today and making sure I'm not left in control unsupervised is our producer, Jeff Ryman. Jeff, how's it going today?
It's good. I'm a little jealous of all the activities that Alex has been up to. So, he's been around the last couple of weeks, so I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm also jealous because Nathan, I hear you have a new jersey that you have, and it's framed in your new place.
Yeah, so fortunate enough, I've had a very long sporting career, and my first sport was 7-a-side parasoccer, and after a little while of having the jersey I wore for 5 minutes for Canada in a match, we finally framed it up and hung it up in my apartment. So it's just a little bit off camera here, but it's a nice little addition to the place. But there's a lot going on right now with the CP soccer team, or the 7-a-side team, as they get ready for the Copa Americas happening in Uruguay. So this is a major kind of test and a great indication of where the program is at, as we're about 2 years away from the Paralympic American Games, which acts as a major stepping stone before the World Cup and before all the major competitions. So right now, Canada is placed in Group B with Chile as well as Brazil, and they open up against Brazil, and they also face off against the CP Soccer US, which is a joint split squad of the US American team. So it's going to be a really exciting 2 weeks of football action down in Latin and South America.
Yeah, that's there's lots of football going on because the 5-a-side blind soccer with Ramya Muthan and Hillary Scanlon and Matt Greenwood, who we've all had on the show before, they're currently in India as well, competing in the first ever female blind soccer championships. So lots of soccer going on, Nathan, but there's also other events. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week, how there were Canadians medaling in the World Para Athletic Championships also taking place in India. And that has since concluded, and there were 9 medals given out to Canadians. A lot of familiar faces who we've had on the program, which is always nice to see, and a couple others that have either broken records, hit personal bests, or just adding to their world's championship collection. So I'll rattle them off, and then Nathan, you can sort of share your thoughts on some of these achievements. But there were 3 golds given out to Canadians. Anthony Bouchard, a wheelchair racer, men T52 100 meter. He's the champion. I believe he set a world record, or at least a championship record in that race. Friend of the show, Greg Stewart, obviously in men's F46 shot put. He came out with a pretty dominant performance. I think he was just shy of a PB there. Nate Tucker, what an incredible finish. I saw a video of this one, men's T38 1500 meter. He accomplished a gold there. If you haven't seen the race, I highly encourage you to do so. Marissa Papaconstantini, we touched on how she won a bronze early last week. She was also able to secure a silver in the women's T64 200 meter, and a couple of bronzes given out as well to Canadians. 2 to friend of the show, Austin Smink. Men's T34, he hit the bronze in 400 and the 800 meters. Julia Haynes, women's F33 shot put, got bronze. Katie Pegg, another women's F46 shot put, bronze. And then, of course, Marissa Papaconstantinu's bronze that we touched on last week in the women's T64 100 meters. So, Nathan, I know I just threw a bunch of numbers and colors colors and medals at you, but your quick reaction to Canada securing 9 medals and obviously a lot of success over in New Delhi.
It's really amazing, and especially you have a lot of first-time medalists and even first-time world champions in Anthony Bouchard's case, and just really starting off with Katie Pegg, who was on her first team in Paris last year, and for her to get a world championship medal so early in her career is massive, but as well as Dr. Julia Haynes and everything that she's doing in the sport of javelin's really amazing. And even in the grassroots side for wheelchair rugby, she's one of the big people in BC for really getting that sport going. So for her to get on the podium is massive. But where I really want to dive in is Nate Tucker winning that world championship, and just the hunger, the drive that he has had since a Paris performance where he won silver. But for him, he's a guy who wants gold. He's the guy who wants the world championships and the records and everything like that. And for him to pull away, for him to drive for that line and get it calm and poised was just amazing. But there's so many incredible performances there. And even outside of the podiums, you had Zachary Gringras, who had an amazing Worlds. Amanda Rummery, the two captains, her and Zach, just did a phenomenal job really leading this team. And where athletics is going is super exciting, as LA is going to be that big competition and that big tournament for them. But is there anything that really stood out to you about how Canada did there, or maybe like even going and throwing swimming into the mix, how Canada has done at World Championships this past summer?
Yeah, it's been quite the conclusion to the summer / the early fall season. We touched on how many medals Canada got in swimming on our previous episodes, and then now with the World Athletic Championships. Again, peeling back the curtain, I've already reached out to Athletics Canada to see if we can get somebody on the program in the next couple of weeks, because I really want to talk about these Worlds. It doesn't matter who with, really, because there were just so many performances and so many incredible performances. I think Nate Tucker would be fantastic to get, just because, like I said, that race, just that finish in the 1500 meter was it was exhilarating to watch. So that's really what sticks out to me. And again, we touch on this, I think, like every episode, is just the progress that is being made each and every year in these para sports. And a lot of these athletes, where they're still young, they have quite a bit of experience already, whether that's at previous international competitions, other major events, or even at the Paralympic Games. So lots to be proud of. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that in the next week or two, we can get somebody who was just over in New Delhi to, give us their thoughts in reaction to actually being on the ground over in India.
Yeah, there's such an amazing cast, and that's one of the great things about just being a Paralympic athlete, but also seeing a lot of the sports through this show and doing the writing, doing a lot of the work to find and hear the stories. Is there's so many amazing speakers and there's so many great accomplishments, and you just go through that list you read out a couple minutes ago. There is up and coming stars, and we already have names that are adding to their legacy and just being that difference maker that's really going to set up Canada's national team this year, but also in the years to come. So it'd be absolutely amazing just to get more and more athletes on the program from athletics, but also all sports. But in that lens and in that way, we have a world championship medalist joining us. We have a Paralympic medalist joining us today as we talk and celebrate Dennis Thiessen's career. So let's pan over to Dennis and let's hear the conversation. Dennis, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
First off, congratulations on such an incredible career. Have you been able to soak in everything in the past week or so?
No, it's starting to become reality, and my wife and I were just going back on things yesterday and talking about a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's starting to sink in now.
It was a very emotional and beautiful send-off, and for an incredible tournament at the Grand Slam of Curling. Can you walk through your final tournament and how it was from your perspective?
Oh, I was just so grateful that they asked me to come and play, and on the last game against Italy, going on the Grand Slam ice. I knew it was going to be hard, playing that game, and I just tried to, keep focused, and came down to my last shot. I just said to myself, Dennis, this is your last final shot, and tears started to come down, and I threw it and I made it. So it was, I was quite happy about that, but it's still all bittersweet.
But what a beautiful way to go out with the final shot, ending it on a high like that. When did you realize that you wanted to retire from wheelchair curling?
It wasn't until I think it was like beginning of August. I thought, is when I had long conversations with my, daughter and, my wife, and it was a lot of sleepless nights, and then my daughter, she reminded me of what has all happened in my career, and I thought, no, you know what, it's a good time to do it.
You've been to 3 Paralympic Games, Sochi being your first games, and you ended up medaling at every single Paralympics that you've been to. How special were those experiences, whether it was on the ice or in the village, or just the whole experiences of the Paralympics?
Oh, it's surreal. I mean, Sochi was my first one, and it was with my best friend and teammate Mark Idison, and we were rookies, and to go on that stage and just be in the village was just absolutely amazing. I never knew there was such a thing out there, and when we I think, I was just shaking when I went on the ice for the first time in that venue. There was a lot of people in there, and they were stomping their feet, and even though they didn't know anything about curling, but they were just yelling and cheering and booing and everything else. And so, yeah, it was just fabulous. And Beijing and China, Beijing and Korea, they were just as they were a lot of fun. The villages were great. Just being able to meet people and talking to different people from around the world was just it's just absolutely amazing.
I'm an individual sport athlete myself, but just those crowds and the atmospheres in every single venue, whether it's a winter or summer Paralympics, it's just so beautiful to feel that energy and really experience it. And you mentioned your final shot at the Grand Slam of curling, but were there any moments or throws or shots that really stick out to you throughout your career?
I guess in Sochi, my last shot, because we were winning, it was quite lopsided, but my final shot in the 8th end, that ended the game. Russia didn't have a chance after that, and so I think that sticks in my mind the most in my career.
Now that you've stepped back from national competition and even international matches, how do you see your role in the sport growing, whether it's coaching, mentoring, or even advocacy work?
Right now, I want to take a short break, and that. But I see myself as being taking some kind of role in the national program and even in my own province, to see if we can get more curlers out and get a team from Manitoba, which we didn't have last year. So I can see myself doing that.
This is going to be a deeper question. You've been in the sport for over 2 decades now. Is there anything that you take the most pride in from your time playing as a wheelchair curler?
Well, I guess when I started the curling, I had no idea what wheelchair curling was about, and teaching yourself and then finally getting a coach was great. And I think just being able to play on Team Canada since 2012 to me, it's a lot of pride and representing Canada, and it just can't take that away from someone.
And you've represented the Maple Leafs so well. We've asked former teammates of your Mark Eidson and Ina Forrest this question at previous summits. Where do you keep your Paralympic medals?
My family bought quite a large coffee table with glass top, and there's sections in there, and so it's all displayed. There's from the different Paralympics and also from the Worlds. So it's when I'm down here watching sports on TV, it's in my face, and I'm pretty proud of that now, especially now. I mean, I never really thought too much of it as before this. I mean, I always think about it, but now seeing my wall and that huge table with the glass top with all the medals and there is it's quite a feeling.
That's so beautiful. One of the great things about sports like wheelchair curling is you get to go to so many different venues and locations that you play in. Do you have a favorite venue that you've played a match in?
Besides the Paralympics?
Besides the Paralympics, anywhere where you've played in your career?
I really liked Switzerland. I really like that the venue there, the hall is all set up in there, but if I'm gonna say the most favorite venue would have to be in the Sochi.
Yeah, just from what you said earlier, it sounds so amazing there, and kind of staying in the same lens of travel, having that chance to go to so many different places around the world. Do you have a favorite food destination that you've been to that's personal to you?
I'm gonna say Switzerland. There's a lot of German food there that and I am from a German background, and so it's the authentic food, and it was I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the food over there is really amazing. Like, I was in the German part of Switzerland, and it was just phenomenal. All the dishes and all the meals there. And throughout your career, you've been able to go up against so many amazing wheelchair curlers, but also played with amazing wheelchair curlers as teammates, as Canada has such a storied history in wheelchair curling. Now that I am putting you on the spot, would you have a Mount Rushmore of wheelchair curlers that you've either played against or played with? So top 4 players that you've had done battle with or were teammates with.
Well, for teammates, I'm gonna have to say Ina Forrest and Mark Eidson and Sonia Gadet. I mean, that was to me that was huge to be their teammates, and how Ina mentored me in the sport, and how we instantly clicked and became friends and teammates for all these years.
That's really amazing. And maybe any players that you went up against that you really hold in that high regard for, whether how they were as a competitor or just as a person on and off the ice?
Yeah, it would have to be Sweden, Skip Yali. I can't pronounce his last name. But he, just the way he held himself, and he was just so professional on the ice. And when we were playing him, he was very, very serious. And as soon as the game was over, he was just a total different person. And I had a lot of respect for him.
Dennis, I'm going to leave on this question here, and I'm so thankful for your time today. Throughout your time and your career in wheelchair curling, has there been anything that you've seen evolve most in the game and in the sport?
Well, yeah, like I think from Team Canada, when I first started till now, it has evolved so much. Comes to strategy and just how you throw a rock, and we're trying to, even though we throw with a stick, but we're trying to mimic how the able body throws, how the releases, and it is, yeah. From when I started, you just kind of grab the paint roller stick and put a head on it and trying to throw with that, and it just has changed so much, and I can see it even going further.
Well, thank you for your time today, Dennis, and congratulations on such an amazing career. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much.
And that was our conversation with Dennis Thiessen. What an amazing talk, and just really hearing about what he's seen develop, what he's seen change, and just the technique and just the evolution of the sport. But Jeff, was there any big takeaways for you in that conversation?
Yeah, I think when he lit up right near the end, when you asked him that last question about the evolution of the game of wheelchair curling, now he's been in the game for about 2 decades, and he's seen a lot, and he's played against some of the best competitors there have ever been in the game of wheelchair curling. And like he mentioned on his Mount Rushmore, he's like, I just want to go all Canadian, which I respect. But going a little bit further into this analysis, he mentioned the equipment that, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when he first started playing the sport of wheelchair curling, the equipment wasn't really overly adaptive. He mentioned, I think he said, a broomstick is essentially what he would use to throw the rock. And now we have players using 3D printing to create their own carbon, extremely lightweight sticks that they can use at competitions, or you can customize it to any way you want. And that's sort of, we found that out with Mark Idison at the Canadian Paralympic Summit in June. And he mentioned that, I believe it was off camera. I'm not sure if we got that in the actual interview, but he did mention 3D printing, and that was sort of the first time I heard that. But then more athletes we've had come on the show, they've touched on the fact that they've been able to use 3D printing to adapt equipment to fit them better. So just hearing Dennis talk about just the equipment, the sports science behind that equipment was really fascinating, because that's obviously evolved massively across not even just parasports, but able-bodied sports as well. Like, I'm thinking about the hockey stick. Long gone are the days of a 20-pound hockey stick. Now you go pick up at your local sports store, you can pick up a hockey stick that weighs less than a pound. It's incredible. So just the evolution of the sports science and the equipment side of things was kind of really cool to hear from Dennis.
Oh, it's just so amazing, and just going on to that the evolution theme, and that's the biggest thing. And like, one of the questions that I know I love asking athletes or coaches or different members of different sports on this podcast is just, where is your sport going? And just hearing the evolutions, hearing the changes, and hearing the switches, because even for me as a cyclist, you already see so much happening in the several years that I've been in the sport, and it's just really incredible and amazing, just the ingenuity, the changes, the switches that so many athletes make for their disability, for their condition, to give them that upper edge, to give them that challenge, to give them that chance where they can perform and they can be at the best that they can be when they go represent their country. But my final big thing I've really seen on curling is just the evolution of competitions too. We talked about the Grand Slam of curling having a wheelchair curling exhibition, having a wheelchair curling tournament a part of it. And also this past weekend, and previous guests on the show, Mike Smyth, who was at the Athletes Can Forum in early October, that weekend there, they had an opportunity for all the Athletes Can athletes, whether it's Olympians, Paralympians, or athletes not in that stream, to try curling, but also wheelchair curling too, as there was different members of the team there helping athletes learn how to wheelchair curl. And there's even some great shots of friend of the program, Seamus Bolian, shooting a rock in a chair. And it's just crazy to see and amazing to see just the opportunities that so many athletes have. But speaking of opportunities, this is something that you and I have been really wanting to dive into, as this is going to be airing during the Thanksgiving weekend. And there's no better way to celebrate Thanksgiving than talk about the best part of Thanksgiving. Not the family, not all that stuff, but the food. So we're going to be doing a Mount Rushmore, a snake draft of Thanksgiving food. So, Jeff, I am going to give you the opportunity. Do you want to go first, or do you want to have the first switch in the draft order?
You know what? I think I gotta go first. You're a big wild card here, Nathan. We haven't discussed any strategies regarding this. I will say, just as a producer's note, one main, we'll do 3 sides and a dessert, so 5 total. If I go first, then you get the next 2 picks, and then we'll go back and forth. I think the first pick, you gotta go turkey. No brainer. I love turkey. I never really get it outside of the holidays, Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas, those sort of things. I get it maybe 2-3 times a year, plus the leftovers. Turkey's a no-brainer number 1 pick, Nathan.
Well, for me, I'm not a turkey guy, so turkey wasn't even on the board. So and I know that's a controversial thing to say, and I'll be interested to see what people in the comment think of that statement, but I am going with a honey ham as my first pick in my draft, but second. And I have English, but also Irish roots. So we had a lot of mashed potatoes, a part of our Thanksgiving dinners. So I'm going to go mashed potatoes as my second pick in the second round. First pick in the second round.
I like that. That's a good heavy start there for you, Nathan. For my second pick, I feel like I've got to go a carb of some sort. But I could also pick a dessert nice and early here. I'm going to go apple crisp. I'm going apple crisp. That's something that's always been a tradition at Thanksgivings in my family. A warm apple crisp with a nice scoop of ice cream, vanilla ice cream. I think that is a really good go-to dessert.
Okay, I think I was scared for a second you were going to take the dessert I wanted, but so far I can see you and I are both thinking in different lenses and different kind of views. But what is your first pick of the third round?
I'm gonna go for a carb. I'm gonna go a classic dinner roll. Give me a nice warm bun with some butter. I would have liked mashed potatoes, but since those are off the board, gotta go with a nice warm dinner roll.
Okay. I'm safe. I'm liking how this is starting to come together. I'm going to save my dessert for the end. That's kind of like, for a lot of our fantasy football listeners, that's kind of like the kicker role for me. So I know my kicker is going to be safe. So I don't need to worry about that now that apple crisp has already been taken. But going into my third pick, I am going to say turnips. I love turnips, and how my family put it together was amazing. And I'm shocked this one is still on the board, but stuffing. Stuffing is going to round out all of my sides.
Yeah, that's a good bargain. I was going to go with stuffing next. I have a draft board here. I'm going to have to allude to it. I am going to go with squash. A good squash just screams a good turkey dinner. A little bit of some sort of sweetness in it, maple syrup. You can throw some brown sugar in there, lots of butter. Give me squash. And then for my next pick, and I believe this is my final pick, I'm going to go with a good cheesy hash brown casserole. Everybody has their own recipe for one of these things. It's basically just pure dairy, cheese, milk, and frozen hash browns compiled into a tin that's baked in the oven for however long. So I'm going to round out with the good old hash brown casserole.
I love that. That's actually a great pick. Nothing beats a good, solid, warm, heavy casserole. But you left it open. And for our international viewers or people not from the US or in Canada, like Canadian Thanksgiving happens the second week of October. And at that time, it's really folly outside. There's a big thing. There's a big drink that's always sold in Starbucks, but other places. And there's a big theme leading into Halloween, and that's pumpkin. And my favorite dessert on earth is pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie with a little bit of whipped cream is incredible and is amazing. And that is going to be my dessert. And that is going to round out my Thanksgiving meal in Mount Mushmore.
You know what? Two completely different meals. I am not a pumpkin pie fan, so we were completely on different sides of the spectrum there. You went with ham, I went with turkey. I think both are solid meals, but great choices, great choices.
That's a pretty solid list, but unfortunately our runtime is pretty solid as well and doesn't allow any fluctuation. So for myself, Nathan Clement, and my producer and Big J Journal himself, Jeff Ryman, thank you for watching. Catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.